A racist police officer brutally attacked a pregnant black woman, kicking her in the stomach, which caused her to collapse in agony and put her unborn child's life in danger. However, within a day, her husband, a former soldier, stepped in and made the officer pay for his actions. What happened next was unimaginable. Watch now, and don't forget to subscribe for more shocking stories. Eleanor Jackson, 7 months pregnant, was heading home after shopping, unaware of the terrifying encounter that awaited her. As she walked through the parking lot, a police car screeched to a halt beside her. Officer Bradley Cole, a middle-aged white officer known for his abuse of power and racist behavior, stepped out. With his intimidating build, neatly cropped hair, and icy demeanor, Cole exuded arrogance that immediately put Eleanor on edge. "Stay right there," he commanded, his hand resting on his gun. Eleanor froze, feeling the fear rise as she looked around, but passers-by ignored her, avoiding any confrontation. "What did I do wrong?" Eleanor stammered, her voice shaking. "I said stay still," Cole shouted, stepping closer, his grip tightening on his gun, increasing the tension. Eleanor's heart raced, her concern not just for herself but for the baby inside her. She felt a sudden, sharp kick from the baby, a response to the stress. "Don't try to act smart," Cole sneered, stepping toward her with increasing hostility. Eleanor tried to explain that she had just finished shopping and was heading home, but it only seemed to enrage him more. "I don't need troublemakers in this area," Cole spat as he advanced. Eleanor stepped back slightly, feeling the injustice of his words. "I'm not causing trouble," she said, but before she could say more, Cole shoved her hard. "I'm pregnant!" Eleanor cried out, her voice trembling, trying to protect herself. But instead of stopping, Cole brutally kicked her in the stomach. Eleanor screamed in pain and collapsed on the ground, her bag spilling groceries, apples rolling across the parking lot. She curled up, clutching her stomach, sobbing in agony. The crowd stood frozen in shock, some pulling out their phones to record the event, further angering Cole. The video of the attack quickly went viral, spreading outrage. Hashtags like #JusticeForEleanor and #StopPoliceViolence trended, drawing national attention to the brutality. The outcry from the public put pressure on the authorities, exposing the ugly truth of police misconduct. Eleanor was rushed to the hospital, still in pain, while her husband Ethan, a former Special Forces soldier, received a call from a friend. Hearing the news, he immediately drove to the hospital, determined to be by his wife's side. Upon seeing Eleanor in her weakened state, Ethan's heart broke, but as he held her hand, a wave of anger surged within him. "She kicked me," Eleanor whispered, tears rolling down her face. Ethan gripped her hand tightly. "You and the baby will be okay," he reassured her, but inside, a fire of justice began to burn. He knew he couldn't let this go. Meanwhile, Cole continued his day at the police station, mocking the viral videos and feeling untouchable. He had faced complaints before, but had always escaped accountability thanks to his corrupt connections. Back at the hospital, Ethan wasn't just grieving, he was strategizing. His military training kicked in, and he immediately began gathering evidence and support. He knew he couldn't just rely on anger. He needed a clear plan and allies to take on the system that protected men like Cole. He reached out to journalists, lawyers, and human rights activists, and began compiling a detailed dossier on Cole's past misconduct. What he uncovered revealed a pattern of abuse that had been hidden by a corrupt system. Ethan's plan had 3 phases. First, amplify the media pressure. Second, gather irrefutable evidence. Third, build a strong alliance to bring the truth to light. He worked tirelessly, using his military contacts and intelligence skills to expose Cole and the department that shielded him. As he sat beside Eleanor's bed, Ethan promised her silently, "I'm not fighting for me. I'm fighting for you and our baby. I won't let anyone hurt our family again." With this resolve, Ethan began his public campaign. He held a press conference revealing the details of Cole's abuse, the evidence against him, and his plan to file a lawsuit not only against Cole, but against the police department itself. The media coverage of the press conference and the shocking evidence quickly went viral, sparking nationwide outrage. People all over the country rallied behind Eleanor, demanding justice. The Jackson family wasn't alone. The community organized prayer vigils, donated money, and even created a mural in Eleanor's honor, calling for justice. Local protests erupted, and public figures, including artists and politicians, voiced their support. This movement grew into a symbol of unity and resistance against police brutality. As the pressure mounted, Officer Cole watched in growing panic as the city and the nation demanded justice. He realized that the game he had been playing was over. Ethan Jackson's fight for his wife and child had become a fight for justice, one that would not be silenced. The situation was spiraling out of control. "It's just a small matter," he told a close colleague, his frustration evident in his voice. "People are blowing it out of proportion. They'll forget soon enough." But even Cole knew this time was different. The media and public pressure were overwhelming, and his superiors had begun distancing themselves, leaving him to defend himself. Deep down, Cole was not afraid of the consequences of his actions, but of the collapsing system that had always protected him. If Ethan, Jackson, and others started digging into the darker secrets of the police department, everything could unravel. Meanwhile, Eleanor remained in the hospital, slowly recovering. As she watched the growing protests on the television, a renewed sense of hope filled her. Ethan often stayed by her side, sharing news of the increasing support. "You're not fighting alone," he would say, his pride in the movement clear. Eleanor, while still healing, couldn't ignore the feeling that she needed to do more. "I want to be involved," she told Ethan one day. Surprised, he urged her to rest, but she insisted. "This isn't just about me. I can't sit here and do nothing. People need to understand that what happened to me can happen to anyone, and we need to stand up and fight." Eleanor began reaching out to human rights organizations Ethan had been in contact with, sharing her story and helping to organize press meetings. She even proposed a public event at the hospital where she would make her first appearance since the attack. "We need to speak out," she said. When the day came, her voice was filled with emotion as she stood before the crowd. "Silence is no longer an option. Today I stand here not just for myself, but for everyone who hasn't been heard." Her words quickly became a rallying cry, and the movement grew. Protests, support funds for victims of police violence, and local community meetings followed, each an expression of the larger struggle against injustice. The movement gained momentum, and Ethan became the face of the cause, though his primary motivation remained his family, the two lives he had sworn to protect. As the movement gained strength, the pressure on Officer Cole mounted. Videos exposing his violent actions spread, and articles revealing previous complaints against him surfaced. His name, once relatively unknown, now appeared in national media, symbolizing police abuse and corruption. Despite the growing evidence, Cole remained defiant, dismissing the situation as just another passing storm he had weathered before. He tried to maintain his usual arrogance, even as allies began to desert him. Desperate, Cole's colleagues suggested shifting the focus to discredit Ethan. "We need to make them look like the troublemakers," one of them said during a closed-door meeting. Cole was also making personal threats to intimidate Ethan. One night, Ethan received an anonymous call with a cold, threatening voice. "You'd better back off, or things will get worse. Your wife and child won't be safe." Ethan stayed calm but burned with anger. He knew that this wasn't a fight he could back down from. Soon after, a strange man was seen hanging around the hospital, which made Ethan more suspicious. He couldn't shake the feeling that Cole was behind it. Meanwhile, Cole grew more desperate. A few younger officers, including Lucas Harper, began speaking out against the corruption in the department. Lucas, a young officer who had once admired Cole, became disillusioned after witnessing numerous instances of police violence and racial discrimination. When he heard about what had happened to Eleanor, he knew he couldn't stay silent anymore. One day, Lucas reached out to Ethan, offering to help. Meeting in a quiet cafe, Lucas shared critical information. He revealed that Cole wasn't just a rogue officer. He was part of a larger network of corruption within the police department. Lucas provided documents that detailed Cole's past misdeeds, including evidence tampering and the suppression of complaints, particularly those involving black victims. Though Lucas feared for his safety and career, he couldn't stand by any longer. "I used to think I could change things from the inside," he confessed. "But the system is broken. If I don't speak out now, I'm just as bad as him." Ethan, sensing the gravity of what Lucas was offering, thanked him. "You've just made a real difference," he said. But with their actions came danger. Both Ethan and Lucas were threatened. Ethan received another anonymous call warning him to stop, and Lucas was approached by a colleague who warned him not to go too far. The threats only fueled their determination. Back in the department, Cole was feeling the pressure. He grew increasingly paranoid, aware that the tide was turning against him. Rumors of an impending investigation circulated, and he began to panic. Desperate to hold on to his power, he pushed his superiors to take stronger countermeasures. Ethan, meanwhile, was formulating a plan. With the documents Lucas had provided, he now had the evidence to take on not just Cole, but the entire corrupt system that protected him. "We've come too far to stop now," Ethan said to his legal team. "This is bigger than just Eleanor. This is about taking down the system." While the fight continued, Ethan's commitment to his family was always at the forefront of his mind. Eleanor's health scare had reminded him of what was truly important. "I can't keep doing this without taking care of you," he told her after a close call with their unborn child. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself to rest and focused on his family. Still, Eleanor, though needing rest, continued to motivate him, reminding him that their fight was for the entire community. With a renewed sense of purpose, Ethan took his fight to the next level. He gathered his team and, with Lucas's help, prepared for a direct confrontation with Cole. On a sunny morning, Ethan walked into the police department, documents in hand, with a team of lawyers and human rights activists by his side. Outside, a crowd of protesters had gathered, demanding justice for Eleanor. Cole, seeing the commotion, could only feel anger and anxiety. But he masked it with arrogance, determined not to let Ethan take him down. "If they want to fight, they've got one," Cole muttered, stepping out to confront Ethan. The tension was palpable as Ethan and Cole crossed paths in the hallway. Ethan stood firm, his gaze steady, while Cole maintained a defiant stance, though his eyes betrayed a hint of vulnerability. "We need to talk," Ethan stated, his voice calm and unwavering. "About what?" Cole retorted with a smirk. "If you're here to complain, I don't have time." "This isn't a complaint," Ethan replied, holding up a folder. "This is evidence, not only of what you did to Eleanor, but of all the other abuses you've committed throughout your career. Today, everything changes." Ethan and his team entered a conference room where senior officers had been summoned. As the meeting began, Ethan laid out a comprehensive case against Cole, backed by documents, witness testimonies, and videos provided by Lucas Harper. These reports detail Officer Cole's violent and abusive behavior, a lawyer pointed out as the evidence was displayed. Here is proof that these reports were tampered with or suppressed by his colleagues. The room fell silent. Many officers who had once shielded Cole couldn't refute the overwhelming evidence before them. Cole, standing in the corner, was furious. "This is a farce," he shouted, slamming his hand on the table. "These are lies. You have no right to accuse me." Ethan, unfazed, stepped closer. "This isn't about your authority," he said. "This is about justice, the justice you've stolen from my family and so many others." The moment reached a boiling point when Lucas Harper, whose identity had been kept secret until now, walked in. He faced his colleagues in Cole's fury. "I've seen it all," Lucas declared. "Officer Cole abused his power and buried the truth. I can't stay silent any longer." Lucas's testimony was the final blow to Cole, who found himself alone, his once loyal colleagues unwilling to defend him. Internal Affairs arrived to arrest him, reading the suspension and arrest orders aloud. Despite his resistance, Cole was handcuffed in front of everyone, shouting, "You'll regret this." Standing at the edge of the room, Lucas watched Cole's desperate attempts to justify himself. Reflecting on Cole's fall from grace, Lucas realized that his former hero was nothing more than a coward hiding behind power. Cole was led out of the building, a mix of anger and regret washing over him. He recalled his first day as a police officer, proud of his decision to serve, But over time, power had clouded his judgment. Now, he was stripped of everything, including his self-respect. As Cole was escorted out of the police station, the crowd erupted in cheers. Signs demanding justice were raised high, and Eleanor's name rang out in the air. Ethan remained stoic, but his voice cut through the silence. "Your only mistake was thinking you couldn't be caught." Though the arrest was a major victory, Ethan knew it was only the beginning. The system that had protected Cole still stood, and to prevent others like him from rising, it needed to be dismantled. Ethan and his team dug deeper into the corruption within the New Orleans Police Department, uncovering a widespread network of bribery, cover-ups, and falsified evidence. As the truth came to light, federal prosecutor Daniel Armstrong, too, charge of the investigation, recognizing the case as one of the largest corruption cases of his career. With many senior officers fearing their own involvement, they began turning on each other. Within weeks, Armstrong had a list of names tied to the corrupt network, some once celebrated as legends within the department. As Cole's allies crumbled, he found himself isolated, facing mounting evidence that led to his arrest. Ethan, though relieved, felt the weight of Eleanor's devastating news. She could never conceive again. In the hospital room, Eleanor apologized, but Ethan reassured her. "We've lost something, but we won't lose our purpose," he said, holding her hand. He vowed to fight for every family that had suffered injustice, not just for their own. Their fight had become a sacred promise to make a difference. Later, they established the Jackson Center for Justice and Equality, using the settlement money they received to support victims of police violence and push for police reform. At the center's opening ceremony, Eleanor, holding their son Justice, addressed the crowd, saying, "This center isn't just a legacy for my family, it's for all of you, those who have fought for justice." As the Jacksons stood proud, Cole was in prison, watching the ceremony from his cell. His confession had rocked the community, revealing the vast corruption within the police force, and prompting a broader investigation into the city's power structure. As Cole reflected on his actions, regret filled him. He had let power consume him, and now he was paying the price. Back at the ceremony, Ethan and Eleanor, surrounded by friends and supporters, celebrated the opening of the center. "We've endured pain, but we didn't let it define us," Eleanor said, her voice strong. They had overcome their trials and emerged stronger, ready to inspire change for the future. Their story was not just about justice, but about resilience, love, and the power of perseverance. The Jackson Center began its work, not just as a support center, but as a beacon of hope for those fighting for a more just world. Ethan, Eleanor, and Justice stood as symbols of the strength born from their loss, and their story would inspire others to continue the fight for justice, knowing that even in the darkest times, hope and determination could light the way. Would you have the courage to stand up for your family and justice, despite the risks? Share your thoughts in the comments below. This story isn't just about the Jacksons. It's about what justice means in today's society. Join the conversation and spread the message that justice must be fought for and protected.